Democrat Representative AOC is taking some smoke from conservative commentators in recent days over her possible burner account at Zaza Smoka, after it looks as though she may have responded accidentally under that handle, rather than her professional account. Taking a brief break from a paid defense of Chinese company ByteDance, she issued a statement calling for the FBI to investigate as to how this imposter could have gotten this account onto her phone, and how they kept posting hateful tweets, especially when she was on the phone at the same time. When informed that the account at Zaza Smoka had already called for investigation, she was forced to switch back to her professional account and denounce it all over again. Kamala Harris chimed in defense of AOC, saying, quote, I remember being a kid and smoking all kinds of dope. I also remember smoking all kinds of dope while putting people in jail for it. But I at least only joked about it in an interview and didn't make it my Twitter handle. AOC has not yet stated whether or not this occurrence changes the connotation of her famous Green New Deal. In other news, fast food giant McDonald's is being forced to cut the fat as it closes U.S. offices and prepares to lay off more workers. When asked for comment, they responded, quote, we just can't keep affording to hire disgraced Democrat politicians in this disgraceful Democrat economy. We tried taking Lori Lightfoot, and already there's been 4 people shot in that store alone. And finally, former President Donald Trump appeared before the Circuses Court today and will be investigating 34 felony charges against the former president. Thankfully, it is in a circuit court, otherwise Trump would have been confused about the clowns everywhere. Once he was inside, he immediately overrode his lawyer, saying that he was, in fact, guilty of the success of Ron DeSantis' campaign. But Ron DeSantis wasn't really that successful anyway, which is why Trump is so much better. When his lawyer informed him that it was not, in fact, a campaign rally, Trump revised his statement to say that everyone hates him and it's not fair that he should be indicted for a hush money payment when Bill Clinton did it on the desk and didn't even keep hush about it. In response to the indictment, Marjorie Taylor Greene had planned to hold a rally in support of the former president, but her plans were foiled when Eric Adams, occasionally competent mayor of New York, incompetently issued a statement saying that if she couldn't behave herself, she'd have to sit in timeout. When the current president was asked about what the hell was going on in Manhattan, so help me, he just sat and laughed. I'm Thomas Hodge, and this is Stand Up. What I wanted to take a look at today was an article that I came across. Talks about the 10 core beliefs of Democrats, and I wanted to take a look at those today and kind of debunk them or note some of the problems that I find with them. So this is the Friday lead letter, The 10 Core Beliefs of Democrats by Carla Voisard. And let's just jump right into it. So it says here that we, the Democrats, unite behind, and the first one is we believe everyone who works should make a livable income. So this is a nice sentiment here. It would be nice that if you were working, you would be able to make enough money to get by and provide for your family. However, this is just not doable. There's a reason that minimum wage is minimum wage. People who work minimum wage jobs are often high school and college students, people who aren't trying to raise a family. If you tried to pay the minimum wage worker enough money to be able to provide for his family just doing the bare minimum, the economy would not fare well. You would see a rise in the cost of living, and eventually the economy would equalize out once more just at a higher price. So this is why you hear these people calling for a $15 or $25 minimum wage. It just doesn't work. When you increase the amount that you pay for the minimum labor, that doesn't mean that the minimum labor has more money in his pocket. What it means is it's just a crunch for the middle class, because the middle class doesn't get a pay raise while the lower class does. So the lower class starts to make more money, middle class doesn't, and then the middle and lower class people can't afford for it anymore because businesses and companies will just charge more in response to a higher minimum wage. Another thing that happens is that companies will then lay off employees that it doesn't need. McDonald's is already having to fire people right now because they can't afford to pay them and the economy is so bad. So making a livable wage off of minimum wage is just not feasible, and it will never happen. So the next point that we get to is we believe everyone should have access to good, affordable health care. So, I mean, everyone does have access to health care, it's just whether or not you can afford it. And I get that that's not ideal. You know, in a perfect world, everyone would be perfectly healthy and everyone would have access to the best medical care you can buy. However, because of the fact that doctors have to get paid, hospitals have to operate, you can't afford for the government to subsidize things like Medicare, because what happens is there becomes a decrease in the competition between different medical providers. And the reason that Medicare and things like that don't work is because in socialized medicine, where everyone gets affordable health care, you see things like waiting lists. And when everyone gets the same kind of health care, then you don't see specializations like you see in the United States, where you can go to a specialist and get seen relatively soon. Yes, it's more costly. However, the ability to have access to higher health care is directly a result of having competition in healthcare and being able to go for the best place for the best price. So the next point that we get onto moving in is we believe all Americans deserve a public education and access to affordable advanced education or training. Not everyone may want to go to college, but everyone needs training beyond high school to make more than a livable wage. So this on its face is just not true. You have plenty of people who, yes, okay, maybe trade school is similar to a kind of higher education. However, you don't need that to make a livable income. And additionally, that burden just gets sent to the taxpayers. Okay, college is not free. Medicare is not, nothing is free. When the government provides a program, what you see is the government either has to cut spending somewhere else, so they have to cut spending for the military or cut spending for welfare, and then it goes to a new place. So money is fungible. So the government's either going to end up cutting from somewhere else that the government's already spending funds at, or they're going to raise your taxes. So by making college free for everyone, then you're just going to see a price hike and a decrease in education. Because just like healthcare, colleges are in constant competition with each other. This is why we have things like Ivy Leagues, right? These are prestigious colleges that you have to pay a lot of money to go to, but theoretically, the education you receive will be better. And so when you make all higher education subsidized by the government, then the government, right, whoever pays the piper plays the tune. So what happens is the government is then in control of everything that is learned in higher education, which we're already starting to see through public universities. They're starting to teach things that the average American doesn't believe or agree with. And additionally, because of the burden it would make on the taxpayer, it's just not feasible. It's not worth it. And so this is where we get into the next point. We don't believe abortion is a great thing, but we do believe women should control their own bodies, and that, in conjunction with their physicians, they should be allowed to make the decision on what is best for them. Abortion's murder. Okay? Life begins at conception. Both theologians and atheists in the scientific community have agreed on this. That is not a fact that is up for debate. The fact that life begins at conception is not a matter of opinion. It is exactly what it is. It's a fact. And so, I mean, they even give their point away right at the beginning when they say, we don't believe that abortion is a great thing. Well, why is it not a great thing? Right? This was always the fallacy with Bill Clinton's safe, legal, and rare solution to the abortion debate back in the 90s, right? Because if an abortion is safe and an abortion is legal, why does it need to be rare? If it's just a regular medical procedure like a standard surgery or maybe getting a mole frozen off, if it's just a standard surgery, right, why does it need to be rare? The reason that it's not a great thing, the reason that it needs to be rare, is because they know that it's taking an innocent human life, but they don't want to admit it. And so that's where we run into the problem. You believe women should be able to make the choice about their own bodies. It's not your own body. From the moment that conception starts, that's a new genetic code. That's a new human being. They may not be completely formed yet, but that's a new human life. So it's not your body, and you can't choose to kill it. Moving on. So the next point is we believe in a strong military, but also that we do not need a military force bigger than the next 10 largest countries combined. Well, here's my question. Why? Why don't we need a powerful military? We are, for all intents and purposes, the global police. We run NATO. All the other countries in the world who also have militaries would be more than happy to come marching on us at any point in time. We are the beacon of the free world, and we are at the top of the stage. We're the center of the global stage. And so we need a strong military to defend our country, defend our values and beliefs. Freedom is not the natural human state. Freedom is a product of the genius of combined thinkers from the Enlightenment as well as our founding fathers when they wrote the Constitution. And so, because freedom is not the natural human state, as Reagan used to say, it's always one generation away from collapsing. The American dream is always one generation away because freedom is in constant need of defense. People are always looking to get more power. People are always looking to enslave or be in charge of their fellow man. And so you need a strong and efficient military to protect American interests. So moving on here, the next point is that we believe that the law allows for the right to keep and bear arms, but there can and should be reasonable limits placed on the kinds of weapons, ammunition, and accessibility. So this is actually, funnily enough, it does say that we do have the right to bear arms, right? That is in the Constitution. You have a lot of Democrats now who are more than happy to get rid of the Second Amendment entirely, but I hate to break the fact that there already are reasonable limits on guns. Okay, you can't buy fully automatic weapons. You can't buy these big weapons of war and things like that. However, I can get behind that accessibility should be limited. I can agree with the fact that there should be more rigorous background checks. I don't think there should be red flag laws because I think that that's far too easy for the government to abuse, right? If you have red flag laws on somebody, that kind of gets rid of the due process, because in due process you have to inform them as to and let them know as to why you're taking their property or something like that. And so if you have a red flag law that just lets you take the property or the weapon of someone without letting them telling them why or any other reason, simply that you've noticed a red flag about the individual, that doesn't work. That's not good. That's unconstitutional. And so there already are reasonable limits on these weapons. Okay? And the thing about gun control is that criminals are criminals and they will continue to break the law. What happens when you take the guns away from private law-abiding citizens is that it makes them easier targets for criminals with guns. Because if you outlaw guns, black market trades are still going to happen. Criminals are still going to get a hold of weapons. Okay? Now, all that gun control does is it stops the private citizen from being able to defend themselves. So the next point is we believe in a free press and access to information. We also believe the press should be held accountable if they do not tell the truth. Again, this is something that on its face is a good thing. Freedom of the press is a good thing. Libel and slander are not good things. However, when it comes to truth, the Democrats like to operate on their own truth. This is where you see all these kinds of liberal fact checkers who are clearly biased, who go in, they flag social media posts from conservative outlets and news networks, they rate news sources like Fox News, PragerU, they give them terrible ratings, and that limits their traffic, right? So when it comes to the press reporting true news, the truth according to who? Because if the government is regulating what the truth is, what makes you think that a whistleblower is ever going to come out? Or if a whistleblower does come out, what makes you think the government's going to allow that to happen? Right? So freedom of the press has to remain independent from the government and from regulation over what the truth is. Now, granted, like I said, we already have laws against libel and slander. Those are good laws. We should continue to keep those. If a news publication publishes something that is untrue, they can be held accountable. However, this statement right here strikes me as relatively euphemistic because they say, well, you're not telling the truth, right? So you see this, I don't even know if I can mention this on YouTube. You see this sometimes with the COVID vaccines. The COVID vaccines were highly effective. And it comes out that maybe they weren't, right? Maybe they weren't as effective as they say. But even if they were, right, anyone who disagreed with the status quo, right, they got removed. They got taken off of YouTube. They couldn't speak. They were censored, right? And so that is what censoring the truth means. That's what they mean when they say hold the press accountable to telling the truth or not telling the truth. Anymore, it seems that they are holding the press accountable for telling the truth and not keeping up with the narrative. So the next one here is we believe there can be a broad range of religious beliefs, including not having religious beliefs, and that all are covered under the Constitution. So yes, we do have freedom of religion here in the United States. That is true. However, this country was founded on Christian beliefs and Christian principles. So all of the standard for our law, all the standard for our judicial system, is based upon the fact that we are created in the image of God and are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. When you remove Christianity from that equation, the rest topples. That's what happens because the Constitution and the framework of our government is based upon the assumption of Christianity. When you remove the base from the structure, it falls. And that's also to say, I do not think that things like Satanism are protected under the Constitution. In one of my earlier videos, I said that we as Americans and we as people are capable of knowing good and moral and true things, and we are capable of discerning them from untrue and evil things. Satanism, among being the worship of itself, is worship of the devil. I think that most Americans could agree that that is a bad thing, and it should not be protected under the Constitution. That's not to say that other religions, like Islam, Judaism, and atheism, those are protected under the Constitution. Those are not morally bad things. However, I think it's perfectly reasonable to say that something like Satanism, something that worships evil, something that idolizes vice over virtue, I think there's room for that to not be protected under the Constitution. The next one is, we believe our government has an obligation to regulate the things that we as individuals cannot control. So this is just absurd. This is how you get things like the Green New Deal, So individuals cannot control the weather, so the government's going to try by taking away your gas-powered vehicles and your microwaves and your gas-powered stoves, and they're going to regulate every factor of your life to try and decrease the global climate, the temperature of the Earth by 1 or 2 degrees over the next 100 years, right? So actually, the government does not have an obligation. Actually, the government has an obligation to leave all duties and powers not given to the federal government to the states, right, and other local governments. We see this in the Constitution. And this is something that the Democrat Party is not a fan of. They want to be in charge. They know what's best for you, right? And so that's where they try and regulate the stoves you use. They regulate the cars that you use. They regulate how much electricity and sometimes how much water you can have, right? So, no, the government does not have an obligation to regulate things that we as individuals cannot control, because we individuals can't control them. The government has an obligation to leave those matters to the people, not to some bureaucrat up in D.C. who is not accountable to the people. That's not the way that our system of government was arranged. Lately, it's become how our system of government operates. But that doesn't mean it's good. The government has an obligation to leave those duties to its citizenry. So the next point we see here is that, I think this is the last one, yes. So we believe there's a difference between kneeling in protest and showing actual disrespect for our country. This one is particularly frustrating to me because, yes, it is disrespectful. They further add to this that the right to bring attention to real concerns is a principle on which this country was founded. That is true. One of the gifts of America is that we have freedom. We have freedom of the press. We have freedom of speech. However, why do you think it is that we do have those freedoms, that we do have those rights? It's because this country exists. Again, that's why we need a strong military to defend it, right? In order for you to have your right to call attention to needs and to protest, you need this country. You think you can lead a protest in the street or kneel during the Chinese national anthem? What about in Russia or all throughout the Middle East? No. This is one of the few countries in the world where you can actually protest what the government is doing, and if you feel so inclined, call attention to problems you think society faces. So in order for you to protest, you need the country, and you should respect this country. You have more than enough room to say that America has problems. You can say that. I'm sure that people on both sides of the aisle would agree with that statement. However, the only reason that you can call attention to that is because the freedoms that this country grants you. So respect this country and respect the flag. You should stand for the flag. People have died for it. People have fought in wars to defend the freedom of you to say that this country is bad. People have died overseas fighting wars for you to kneel during the national anthem and kneel for the flag? No. If you're going to stand up for what you think is right, if you're going to stand up and say what you think is wrong with this country, do me a favor and stand up for the flag as well. All right, so the final thing that I wanted to get to today was lawmaker JD Vance is proposing a bill to make the official language of the United States English, right? So as usual, there's two different responses here. So one side is saying that, this is authoritarian, this is government overreach, or even that it's racist, that you can't say that the national language should be one thing or the other, that it's all just floating around, everything's relative, nothing is certain. And then you have the other side, which is saying that no, this bill that would make English the official language of our country is actually preserving the tradition that we have as an English-speaking country. And I'm sure that you can already tell what side I'm on here. But yes, no, I do like this bill, because something that I've been saying for a long time is that you can always judge the health of a society based upon the strictness of its speech codes. So what I mean by this is that healthy societies who are free organically regulate themselves. So if you have someone come out and say things that are not deemed socially appropriate, then society will naturally ostracize those people, right? For the longest time, we used to have obscenity laws on the books. Some of them are still on the books, even though we don't enforce them, right? Those are appropriate laws that make moral choices over what you can and cannot say. And so, healthy societies naturally decide what language they speak. Healthy societies naturally decide what is okay to say in public life. And what's not okay to say in public life is ostracized organically. The citizens decide. Now, the more that the health of that society deteriorates, the more downhill it goes, the more the government has to step in and say, right? Because now that people are no longer capable of governing themselves, now that people are no longer capable of deciding what is okay to say or what language to speak, and so the government has to step in to preserve itself. Something similar that the U.S. has done before is it shut its borders. So that's not actually my point right now, although I do think that we should shut our borders until we can decide what kind of country we are. However, right now I'm merely pointing out the fact that this is an action the United States has taken to ensure that it remains a homogenized nation, that it remains a homogenized country. People come from all different parts of the world, they practice all different kinds of religions, they speak all kinds of different languages. But unlike other countries where they're united by, place of origin or their historic background, the land is theirs, the United States has been a country of immigrants, which is not a bad thing. But that means that the things that unite us as a country are different. Rather than a place of being, the United States is held together by an adherence to the Constitution, an adherence to American values. It's a creed. Being a United States citizen means something. It's an accomplishment. It means that you've come to this country, right, and you appreciate it. You accept it. You want to be a part of it. Being an American citizen is not just merely a change in legal status. It's not you come here and now you're legal so you can speak your own language and you can have your own culture and you can just ignore and not be a part of the homogenized American culture. No. You can preserve certain customs as you come to the United States. You can continue to speak your original language. You can be proud of where you've come from. But another thing that you should be as well is proud to be here. You should be proud to be an American. You should be proud to be part of American life. And some of the pride that comes with that is learning the language, becoming a part of the culture, and becoming a part of the custom. They're grateful to be here. If you're grateful to be here and grateful for the freedom that this country provides, you should become an American. What I'm trying to say is that if being an American means anything, if America is a country, if it means anything at all, if there's anything to unite us, here in America, it should be an adherence to the American values and the American dream, and among other things, a common language. And that's all for today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'm Thomas Hodge, and this is Stand Up.